You're about to see President Trump pay tribute to his longtime ally, the late Senator Lindsey Graham, after two high-stakes meetings at the White House today. And you'll recall the 71-year-old Graham died suddenly earlier this month from an aortic dissection. Here's the president just a short time ago.
I will tell you, he never saw a war that he didn't like. Only his true friends would understand that, but he wanted it for the good of our country. He felt in his bones that our destiny is to win, and that his job was to do everything he could to ensure our enemies would lose.
In tribute to Graham's foreign policy work, several world leaders traveled to Washington to pay their respects, including Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. Both men also met with the president behind closed doors. It's a tale of two leaders on very different trajectories right now. For Zelenskyy, he's found a more open White House to Ukraine's needs in its war against Russia after that infamous first Oval Office encounter last year. Meanwhile, President Trump has more openly discussed his disagreements with Netanyahu than he has in recent years, with new criticism over their joint war with Iran now entering its 6th month. Here are some recent examples.
Yeah, for a little difference, but pretty close, yeah.
Sometimes I disagree with him, and I let it be known, and I've been right.
I guarantee there wouldn't be Israel wouldn't exist today if you didn't have me as president.
NBC's Garrett Haake at the White House for us. Garrett, can we start with Netanyahu? It's their first in-person meeting since before this war started, after they got together 6 times last year. What's your read on where this relationship stands right now?
Well, look, these two men have been friends for decades. They've known each other a very long time, and I don't think that will change. But the president is openly frustrated with Netanyahu and has been for a long time. He's criticized Netanyahu for his aggressive tactics in Lebanon and in Gaza, for the way the IDF has executed both of their wars there. He said that Netanyahu doesn't know what the you-know-what he's doing when it comes to trying to negotiate peace with some of its regional allies. And he said, as you pointed out in the intro there, that he doesn't think Israel would even still be around if it weren't for him. Netanyahu's also not popular domestically, to put it mildly. A plurality of American voters think he ought to be arrested to comply with an international criminal court order that says basically that he's a war criminal. That number is obviously much higher among Democrats than it is among Republicans. But the president is aware of all of this. And so while Israel remains a long-term ally of the United States and an important partner in the Iran war, the sort of overall relationship right now is one where Netanyahu needs Trump much more than Trump feels like he needs Netanyahu.
Interesting. So as for Zelenskyy, the president seems to have really changed his tune a bit there, appearing more supportive of Zelenskyy. Why the shift?
This is a harder one to nail down, Tom. The president has gone back and forth on Zelenskyy and on Putin on who's to blame for the war in Ukraine, and sort of which of those two leaders is more to blame for there not being a peace deal yet. Clearly, in this moment, he thinks the problem is Putin, and Zelenskyy is being more helpful than not. Zelenskyy has changed his tune when it comes to dealing with Trump. You see him actually wearing a suit here today, something that had irritated people close to Trump when he showed up in more of his traditional uniform. And Zelenskyy is kind of taking an enemy of my enemy is my friend approach, targeting drone shipments and Russian and Iranian assets that have moved in the Caspian Sea, something that ultimately could be seen to be to the United States' benefit in the war with Iran. So in this moment, Zelenskyy's on the inside, Putin on the outside looking in, but this has changed so many times in the last year and a half. Yeah. I wouldn't necessarily expect this dynamic to hold.
Yeah, the whole Laura Loomer element here is fascinating. We'll move on from that. Listen, usually the president loves to open these meetings up to the press, at least in part with high-profile leaders like Zelenskyy, like Netanyahu. Today's meetings, though, behind closed doors. Why? Any idea?
It's a good question. We've seen that trend happening more and more often, with more of these meetings appearing on the president's calendar but not inviting the pool into it. It's also possible that it just speaks to the sensitivity of the discussions that were going to be had here. You'll remember that last meeting you were referencing between Netanyahu and the president back in early February was one in which they discussed the lead up to what ultimately would be the Iran war. And so if we're talking about sensitive, potentially classified discussions about these two active wars, you don't necessarily want the press around for that. Although, you know, look, I'm certainly willing to drop in if he's going to make the invitation.
Okay. Well, keep your cell phone on, Garrett. Thanks very much. Garrett Haake at the White House.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.